After the official passing of the new Big Beautiful Bill, America will be charging a $250 entry fee for many visitors. Now, if you're traveling to the US, you should know about this because it might apply to you. And if it does, you may also be able to apply for a rebate to get that money back. Let's get right into what this fee is, why it's being applied, who it applies to, and how you can avoid losing that money entirely. We'll go over each of these categories and I'll show you the actual text of the bill. First, how much? $250, but this is subject to change over time. The current administration has said that this could come into effect as early as October 1st, though there is some question to that. We'll get into it. You can also possibly get a refund, but we're not entirely clear on exactly how that's going to work. I'll talk about that more in a second. And who has to pay? All non-immigrant visa applicants. That's a little bit confusing. Let's get into exactly what that is in just a moment, but starting with how much and how this is going to change over time. On page 299 of 330 pages in the Big Beautiful Bill, there's a lot in this bill, we get this visa integrity fee, which is the name of this fee, visa integrity. And if we zoom in on this text, we can see that the initial amount that will be paid is $250, though this is subject to change over time. They're going to be adjusting this for inflation. Essentially, if the cost of living, otherwise measured by the CPI or the Consumer Price Index, if that goes up by, say, 3%, well, then you could expect the next year number of this 250 to increase by 3%. Although there is additionally a provision in here in section 2B that says such amount as the Secretary of Homeland Security may establish by rule. So this is a baseline, $250, but increasing. But at any time, the Secretary of Homeland Security could increase this number without much notice. Now, as I said, this could come into effect as early as October 1st of this year, though there is some skepticism that that will actually take place. Stephen Brown, a U.S. immigration lawyer, says that the government has signaled that some of these new fees will be rolled out, quote-unquote, soon, but specific start dates have not been confirmed yet. Employers and foreign nationals should anticipate higher immigration costs in the near future and begin adjusting budgets and expectations accordingly, because there are also additional fees for other immigration costs, so we sort of lump this in with this visa fee that is going to be added. Now, future visitors to the U.S. may not have to actually pay the entirety of this fee because there is talk of there being a refund program. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but first I think it's more important to talk about who has to pay. Who does this apply to? I said here all non-immigrant visa applicants, but what is a non-immigrant visa applicant and who is this going to apply to and who is this not going to apply to? First, let's make the distinction between non-immigrant visas and immigrant visas. Now, non-immigrant visas are visas that allow you to come into the country of America without having a permanent plan to stay there. You'd come in for a set duration and then leave at the end of that visa. Now, immigrant visas are ones that have a direct route to either citizenship or permanent residency. So that is not applying to these ones where you're coming in with the intent of staying for the long term. This is for the short term, up to likely 6 months, longer periods of time, but with defined terms. Now, this doesn't just apply to work visas. There are many countries around the world where if you're a citizen of that country, you need to get a visa just to visit America, whether you're working or not working, right? This would apply to everyone from those countries. If you need to get a visa to enter, well, you're going to have to pay this fee. However, there are also many countries where if you're a citizen, you can visit the US without getting a visa. For example, I'm a Canadian citizen, and as such, I can enter the US without a visa. So as long as I'm not going there for work, I can enter without a visa and without paying this $250 visa integrity fee. However, even as a Canadian citizen, there are instances where I would need a visa to go into the States. Like if I wanted to go there for work, not just for a business trip or meeting, but if I were to go there and work and be paid by a US company, I would need a visa, something like an O1 or a P visa or a H1B visa. Depends on the type of work you're doing and why you're coming there to do the work. If you need a visa to enter the country for the reason that you are entering the country, you're going to need to pay the fee. That's the general rule of thumb. Another unique example for Canadians, although I'm sure this applies to other countries, is even if you are a Canadian permanent resident, that doesn't mean that you can go to the States without a visa. In fact, many people who are permanent residents in Canada will need to get a visa just to visit. So even though you may be a permanent resident in a country where citizens of that country will not need to get a visa, you may need to get a visa and as a result pay the $250 visa integrity fee. Now let's get into why this is coming into place and the process you can go through, or that you should be able to go through in the future, to make sure you get this money back. Why are they charging this fee if you can get it back? Let's get into all these details. If we zoom back in here on the text of the bill, we can see there's a fee reimbursement section. They say the Secretary of Homeland Security may provide a reimbursement to an alien of the fee required under subsection A for the issuance of a non-immigrant visa after the expiration of such non-immigrant visas period of validity if such alien demonstrates that he or she, and then there's two criteria that you have to fulfill in order to get your $250 back, at least if we go by the text of the bill. The first one is kind of obvious. It says, well, you've got to follow the rules of the visa that you're in the country on, including the rule of not accepting unauthorized employment, but individual visas may have different rules. As long as you follow those and you sort of leave at the end of your term, well, then that would mean that you would fulfill this first condition. Now, the second condition is where things get a little bit more complex, but it also reveals why exactly this seems to be coming into place. This second criteria that you have to fulfill has two different sections, A and B. If you even fulfill just one of these two, well, then that would also mean that you fulfill the total number two, and you could be eligible, as long as you fulfilled the first one also, to get this $250 back. The first option here is that you have not sought to extend your period of admission during your period in which your visa is valid, and you departed the United States no later than 5 days after the last day of your visa. So in short, this would be fulfilled if you didn't try to extend your visa while you were there and you left on time or within the 5 days after you were supposed to leave. Section B is interesting because they say if you do extend and you're successful in trying to get that extension, well, then you could be eligible also, as well as if you, while you're here on a visa, become a lawful permanent resident. So these might seem a little contradictory. This one says, well, you can't try to extend, and this one says, well, if you do extend successfully, that's okay too. It may sound contradictory, but it puts your ability to get this $250 rebate entirely in your hands if you're on a visa. If you extend, well, then you better be sure that it's going to be successful. Otherwise, if you try to extend and you fail to get that extension accepted, or you fail to convert yourself into a lawful permanent resident, well, then that's rough for you. You're not going to get your $250 back because you would have fulfilled neither of these conditions. It sounds like the idea is to incentivize people who have expiring visas to leave unless they have a very strong case that they could make an extension or become a permanent resident. And it discourages buying time through applying for various different programs to try to extend or try to claim asylum. These different types of status changes can take a long time to process. This $250 seems to be like somewhat of a bond, right? Something that you pay, and then if you are successfully able to fulfill these criterias and you follow the rules, well, then you'll get this $250 back. Or at least we believe that you're going to get this $250 back, because in the text of this bill, there actually isn't a lot of details about how you can get this money back. Because even though we have the details on the criteria for this rebate or this getting the $250 fee back, well, we don't have a lot of answers on how exactly you go about applying for the return of that money. On this same immigration lawyer's website, they say that there's a whole bunch of things we don't know, including what documentation or forms will be required to initiate this refund process and how long it will take this process to actually be paid. Lawyer Stephen Brown concludes that until those procedures are announced and made clear, people should treat this $250 visa integrity fee as a non-refundable upfront cost and plan accordingly. Essentially, we don't know how you apply for this yet, so just assume the worst case scenario that immigration or visa fees are going up and you might not be able to get that money back in the long term. So here's a quick summary of everything that we've covered. This is a $250 fee subject to go up each year following inflation, in. It can also be altered by the Secretary of the Homeland Security at any point. Now, this could start as early as October 1st, though we haven't seen something firm saying this is exactly when it's going to come into play. So we got to keep our eyes open. Subscribe to the channel. I'll let you know if this actually comes into effect. Now, who has to pay? All non-immigrant visa applicants. Essentially, the rule of thumb is if you need a visa to enter the States, well, then you're going to need to pay this. Even if you're from a country where you don't need a visa to visit, well, if you're visiting for business or for a reason that you would need a visa, you will have to pay this. There's a clear outline for getting a refund here in terms of the things you need to fulfill, chiefly that you follow the rules of your visa and that you either successfully extend or successfully leave the country on time during this visa period. That seems to be the criteria on getting a refund, but we don't know what paperwork or even how or when you can do this. So for the time being, assume you can't get a refund. And the reason why they're doing it, well, in my eyes, it seems like a way to reduce processing for people who are trying to extend their visas because, well, if you unsuccessfully apply for these extensions and you're here for a long time, well, then you're not going to get this $250. So it should be a reduction in actual processing and administrative costs for the administration. Now, they also say that there's a number of people who won't be getting refunds, or if you don't apply for a refund, this will all go to the general treasury account based on the text of the bill. So it also could be a revenue generator for the US, or at least that seems to be what they're thinking based on what I've read. So hopefully that answers all of your most pressing questions. If things get updated, I'll keep you posted. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Does it make sense for the US to be increasing these visa costs? Or is that something that's a little bit frustrating to you? Let me know. But with all of that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.